Okay. Matt, can you confirm that you are seeing its recording?
Yes, I can. Looks like it's good to go.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Erin Fashoway. I am the state GIS coordinator. I am also the administrator of the Montana Geospatial Information Act grant program. So first of all, a little bit of the name change. I know there's some grantees that are on the call today that are used to seeing the name Montana Land Information Act grant program. However, this past legislative session, we updated the statutes and changed the naming, and if you've just basically modernized the technology terms in the act itself. We also reduced the size of the council from 22 members to 11. I'm not going to get into too much detail about what changes were made, but if you are interested in learning, I can certainly talk with you one-on-one about that. But this is the guide to the Montana Geospatial Information Act grant program and management guide to grant management seminar that we're doing today. The first half, we're going to go over just the grant program itself. For some of you, it might be a refresher. Hopefully you'll learn something new. And then the second half, we're going to go into the grant reporting tool, and we've updated that tool. So if you are a returning grantee or you are on an extended grant program, you'll see a few changes there. And so we can go ahead and get started. So today we will be going over we'll do some intros. We're going to be defining the parties within the statement of work. We're going to go over the timeline, talk about basic project management. We'll touch on quarterly reporting, invoicing, any changes to the statement of work, and then closing out a project. And if Sean and Matt will help me monitor the chat, if you guys have questions, I don't mind if there's something that's just really unclear for you to interrupt. You could raise a hand, you could type it in the chat. We'll have time for questions later, but just wanted to make sure that we are getting those questions answered as we go along. Feel free to chime in with your questions. Oops. So this is just a reminder. These slides are a high-level overview of the grant program itself, and it's not meant to replace the statement of work. So we just want you to always be referring to your statement of work when you're working on your grant project. So the grant itself is the grant program itself. We are able to provide a grant program under the Montana Geospatial Information Act, and I've highlighted some of the some of the references to code here. If you have further questions about the act, like I said earlier, please reach out to me. One of the major questions that we do get, and I think this is typically when your organizations are setting up the grant program within your financial reporting, within your financial office, wherever that falls. The first question you might have already gotten, or I usually get, is this federal money? Because there's a lot of different types of reporting that local governments, state governments, and tribal governments have to do if you're receiving federal funds. And so just a refresher, this is not federal funding. This is collected by recordation fees. And so that's, I guess, wanted to get that out of the way here in the beginning. So the MGIA or MLA grant funds are not federal funding. Another really big attribute of the grant program is that all the data that's created or collected under the grant program must be made publicly available. It's one of the pillars of the act itself, and principle, one of the founding principles of what we do here at the library is we make the information publicly available and accessible. If there's something, a part of your grant program that cannot be made publicly accessible, grant funds cannot pay for that. And if there is, let's just talk about it. That doesn't mean, you can't use your grant money. There could be other things we could work on, or maybe just remove that from the actual statement of work itself. And then another thing that we'll kind of touch on throughout this presentation today is that this grant program is an agreement that's solely between the Montana State Library and the grantee. And we know that you all hire contractors to help you fulfill your project requirements, but we have to reiterate that this is an agreement only between MSL and the grantee, and we cannot make exceptions to that rule, in that you are going to be the one that's going to be submitting all the data to us, asking us the questions, requesting funding from us, so on and so forth. So we'll get into a little bit of that further. So I think that Matt might have his camera on. If not, Matt and Sean, if you'd like to turn your cameras on really quickly. So like I said, my name is Erin Fashoway. I'm the state GIS coordinator. And then with me today, I've got Matt and Sean. So Matt and Sean, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, please do.
Yeah, sure. I'll go next, Erin. Hello, everyone. A lot of you have met me, but I'm just a GIS analyst with the Montana State Library, and I'm here to I serve as a PM in the Montana Geographic Information Act grant program, but also a resource for the statewide projects that we have here. But some of you have communicated back and forth with me, and you've seen me at conferences and such, but I'm happy to chat with you afterwards and help you through this process. I want to make this easier for you.
And I'm Sean Anderson. Like Erin said, I am the grants and contracts coordinator for the state library. I work in sort of all the various facets of the state library, but working as sort of an admin for this grant program is one of my priorities. So I'm sort of as much as Erin is the sort of technical lead on these grants, you can consider me the administrative lead on these grants. And like Matt, I'm here to make this process as easy as possible for you. So if there are things that you need, more communication from us, guidance, whatever it might be, improvements to our process, I love to hear that stuff. So I guess I would just position myself as a non-technical resource for you. If there's contractual issues or things like that, I'm your guy.
Awesome. Thank you. So congratulations, you've been awarded a grant, and I'm going to mess up. I'm going to call it MLIA because I've been doing it for like 7 years now. Actually, more like 15. So you've been awarded an MGIA grant, and we're excited for you to start your project or continue your project. We have had a grant program in place since 2005, and I think it's one of the reasons why we are so successful in Montana when I talk to some of my counterparts. So this grant program is in place to help us extend and fulfill the requirements of our annual plan. And our annual plan is basically, we've set requirements for some of the things that we need to achieve, whether it's extending GIS resources throughout a county, perhaps aligning, having better survey control so you can better align your boundaries and cadastral to the CAD NSDI, which is the digital version of the public land survey system, or perhaps you're geo-enabling your elections or geo-enabling your next gen 911. So there's a lot of different projects that we have going on here, and we're really excited when we have a new grantee or a returning grantee to see their progress and their successes through this program. So let's define the parties. This is pretty basic, just going to go through. You're going to see some of this reflected in your statement of work. We use a lot of acronyms in general technology, the field of technology, but also in GIS. And so we just want to make sure that we're defining all of those so everybody gets used to hearing these specific terms. So MGIA, again, Montana Geospatial Information Act. The grantee, that is the agency whom we're granting money to fulfill the priority of the grant or the land information plan. And agency, so when you see that in your contract, that refers to us, the Montana State Library. And then we have multiple project managers. So we have the agency project managers, which in this case I left is me here, but that's also Michael Fashoway and Matt Trebesch. Unfortunately, Michael is out of the office. I forgot to say that in a couple slides ago. He's not able to be here, but I know some of you are very familiar with him. If not, you'll get to know him through this grant program. And then we have asked you to define 2 project managers, a primary and a secondary. And so those are your representatives from your agency that are going to understand what's going on with your project. Those are the people that are going to be managing any contractors. And so those are also you who are on the call today. Invoicing. So when you are going to request a reimbursement for something that you've done as a part of this grant project for the MGIA funds, you are going to invoice the Montana State Library. It sounds a little weird because it's just, it might be something you're new to, but that's how the requests for funding is going to be completed. So you will invoice the Montana State Library. We're going to go through that further. And then you have an MGIA grant number. It is it's actually it's numerical, and it's got the contract year and probably I think your name, your organization name in it, and MGIA. So you can see what that looks like here. It's a MGIA _ 2024, and then whatever number you've been assigned. You'll also see it at the top of your contract. So we want you to reference that number in different pieces of the grant program. So as a reminder, the MGIA grant is a year-long grant. It follows the state fiscal year. And so it starts on July 1st of every fiscal year and ends mid-June 2024, unless otherwise negotiated. Some of you have on this call have been awarded an off-cycle grant. We're not going to go over that today, but basically that is still a year-long grant, but it doesn't follow the state fiscal year. So it's a little different. Every grantee must submit 4 reports. And so we consider the first 3 quarterly reports, and then the last report due at the end of the project is a final report. If it's extended, then you will continue to submit reports for the length of your extension. You are able to invoice monthly, not to exceed 80% of the total granted amount. Extensions are allowed, and they must be submitted by mid-May. I think that there's a very specific date in your contract. We left it kind of general here because we've got different folks working on different contracts right now. And then typically data deliverables, if your project has not been extended and your final report is due mid-June. And then final invoicing of remaining funds can be submitted after the data deliverables and final report have been approved. So again, we have to reiterate this a lot. This grant program is between the Montana State Library and the grantee. Therefore, all interaction and communication actually has to take place between these 2 parties. All reports, invoices, technical support, final data submissions must be submitted by the grantee. Specifically, the defined project manager for that grantee, whether it's the primary or secondary. And we realize that project managers can change. There's no problem with changing a project manager. We don't have to do any kind of contract change, but we just need to be notified. It happens all the time. We see it happen often, actually. And so we just want to reiterate that communication needs to be done between the defined project manager or any new project manager that is a part of that organization and the Montana State Library's project manager that's been defined. And then again, we do not work with third parties directly. However, if your contractors have questions, please get them on a call with us. We have no problem communicating with them if they need technical support. But we want to make sure that this is being done in cooperation with you as the project managers. So the second half of this presentation, we're going to demonstrate to you the quarterly reporting tool. And we ask that all quarterly reports be submitted using this tool. Matt will go over that the second part of today. But this is just a high-level overview of what's to be expected in these reports. We want to know what has been achieved to date. If nothing's been achieved, we want to know that as well. And so if you haven't been able to start the project or you've been delayed, please don't take that as you cannot submit a quarterly report. We want to understand why there is a delay and what's going on. And so we expect a quarterly report to be submitted in the time that was laid out in your statement of work. So again, if you have any changes or delays that have arisen in your schedule, there's a spot for that on the report, and Matt will show that here in the next second half of this presentation. We want to understand how you're achieving your proposed timeline, any issues you're having, and then there is a whole section on financial reporting. So we want to understand what you've spent to date, any indication or anticipated changes to the budget, and then any deviations from the approved budget. And so we're going to say this a lot, but any major changes from the original statement of work actually will trigger a need for a contract amendment, and that has to go through an approval process, and we will talk about that here shortly. So invoicing. So again, to request any funding for any project work that has taken place, the grantee must submit an invoice to the Montana State Library with the necessary documentation proving that that funding has been sent. So I should have said this a while back, but this is a reimbursement program. We cannot prepay for any activities. So money has to have been spent, or you have to have received an invoice from your contractor, or perhaps you purchased a computer. You have to have that invoice in place. The project necessarily doesn't have to be done, or your product doesn't necessarily have to be received, but you have to have been invoiced by that third party. Again, you could make a request once a month, and it cannot exceed 80% of the total requested funds. So basically, we hold on to that final 20% until the grant is completed and approved. We ask that you submit your invoicing using the MGIA grant reporting tool. That's new this year. Or you can email it directly to your assigned project manager. We ask that you reference the grant number in your invoice, and then for each line item that you have supporting documentation. On the right, you will see an example of the budget, that summary that was part of your application and then further negotiated upon award of your grant. And so all your information has to be laid out according to each category and defined in your line items. Anything that is going to deviate from a category actually will trigger an amendment. Our auditors are pretty strict with this. Therefore, if you have asked for contractual of 20 grand and you decided you were going to put half of that into personnel, so here you would want to make the contract change of contractual from 20 to 10 and then add 10 to personnel. That would signify an amendment, and it has to be approved before anything can be spent. The invoices are going to be reviewed by your project managers and me, and we will notify you if there's any discrepancies or further documentation is needed, and we ask you to carefully check the math. Sometimes even a penny will throw it off, and we'll have to make sure that it's basically perfect before we can submit it for funding. So if you are going to be submitting invoices for the category of personnel and travel, wanted to just go through, we're going to highlight each of these categories because some of them are a little more complicated than others. If you are paying for someone's time, an employee of your establishment is being paid out of this funding, we're going to need a pretty detailed information of what they have been working on, and their titles, the dates worked, a short description of what was done, the hours worked, the hourly rate, and the total requested. So I've gotten very detailed spreadsheets in the past. You can send me any kind of records that prove that that hours was worked from your individual systems that you use. I would highly recommend that you work with your financial team at your respective agencies. They'll be able to help you get these invoices or do them for you. Travel is pretty straightforward. Receipts for travel expenditures. When we allow for travel to conferences, some folks wonder where their registration should be, or how their registration should be categorized. Typically, we categorize it under travel. So if you are going to the May Get Big Sky GeoCon in April, you would mark that as travel, and that would be negotiated there. Sometimes we also categorize travel in the other category here. So right down here, F is other. If you have specific questions, just let us know and we'll make sure that we get those answered for you, so there's no delay in getting your reimbursement. The other categories are pretty straightforward. It's basically a receipts, so equipment and supplies. It's basic receipts for equipment or supplies that are purchased, contractual, invoices from your consultant for work completed, and then other is basically documentation for other purchases. It just depends on what was laid out in your application and what has been negotiated in your contract. I will say the hang up for contractual is usually dates. You need to make sure that the dates, we ask that you review your contractual requests and whatever you're receiving from your contractors, your invoices that they submit to you, and review the dates. That's the big gotcha there. Typically, if a contract was awarded in mid-July and a contractor shows that he started working on the project July 1, well, that's a flag because there was no contract established. There was no agreement in place. Let's say it's July 15th is when your statement of work was signed for the MGIA grant, and you've submitted us an invoice from ABZ Consulting that starts on July 1. Well, we cannot pay for that, and we need to have that very detailed line item for each day that was worked there, and we can work on that with you. Contractors are usually They keep very good records. And so if they've given you something that's a little too general, then just ask them for a highly detailed summary. And it's typically only around the beginning and the ending of a contract. Okay, so here are some of the things that trigger a statement of work. So contract change. We'll just go through these high level. Again, if you have questions, contact your project manager or myself, and we can walk through those. Also, Sean is here for these questions. Basically, amendments can be granted for any unforeseeable or unpredictable changes that occur during a grant project. Some of the basic amendment that we see is just an extension to the timeline. We understand that things happen, things come up, and we just want you to be in communication with the project manager you've been assigned. Seriously, we've seen it all. Deaths, births, changes of employment, disasters. A lot's gone on over the past 3 or 4 years here in the state of Montana. So we've seen a lot, and we are willing to work with you. We want you to be successful. We just ask that you don't delay in contacting us with your questions about the project or your requests for an extension. And please certainly don't wait to the last moment. There's no need to wait. We need, whether the conversation starts over a phone call or an email or through the grant reporting tool, that's fine. If you are requesting any kind of amendment or change, we're going to ask you to follow it up with an official written request that details all the changes that are being requested. So I'm saying they're being requested because it has to go through an official process here, and we will go through and consider your changes and your requests for an amendment if it's reasonable, and it has to follow our policy and state law, and it doesn't deviate from the original intent, goals, and objectives of the grant, then it will be considered for an amendment. So let's say originally you requested funding through the grant program to do a next gen 911 project, and midway through the grant you wanted to change it to use the funding to collect bubblegum machines throughout the state. We'd say no to that, and that wouldn't be a valid request, and it would definitely change from the original intent of the grant application. And we use DocuSign. You've probably already all been through that. If you have requested an amendment, it's been approved, we will send you or whoever is the signatory for that amendment through DocuSign. The approved amendment will probably, I don't know, Sean, do you send it out as a document first? Can you remind me to review?
Yeah, so anytime we do an amendment like this, I would draft it just so the formatting and the language is all correct, and you as the grantee would get a chance to review that and suggest any additional changes. And then once we're all in agreement that this amendment is acceptable, then I would route it typically through DocuSign, so that you can just sign electronically.
Thank you. Anything else I missed there that you wanted to follow up on?
No, I think the big thing is just to make sure that if you do need a change, whatever change you need, we just want to make sure that you are communicative about it. We want to have documentation. Paper trail is the thing that I am constantly thinking about. So that there's not a lot of rules about what that communication looks like, and email is perfectly fine, and that's enough to kick off that process. But just be in touch with us if something's going on. Don't keep yourself in the dark, I guess I would say.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so we've got a while before we close out a project. For those of you that were just awarded a fiscal year 2024 grant, but some of you will be actually closing out some other projects here probably in the next 6 months. And so this is just a reminder of what it looks like when you're closing out a project. So first of all, time. Time is something that triggers a project closeout. You're welcome to complete your project early. We love when that happens. It does happen every once in a while. The project statement of work has ended, and the grantee does not request an extension. Other things that will close it out or change when it comes to time, change the actual timeline would be an extension, or that extended timeline has passed. So that's triggers a project closeout. Final report at the end of your grant. A final report is due, and that is due before we issue the final 20%. And we highly recommend photos or other media. We ask for maps, anything that depicts what you have done, especially if you're doing field work. We like to use those photos in our own reporting. We like to kind of show off what our grantees are doing and the successes of our program itself. And so we would love to have any pictures or other media, and of course maps is another big one. Funding. So again, I think I've said this enough, but we hold on to 20% of the grant funds until the end of the project. When all deliverables have been received, we will say everything has been approved. You may request the final 20%. And then submitting the data. So again, all data under the project has to be publicly accessible. And it has to be made publicly accessible by the grantee, whether that's a written request via email or you put it on a website. It doesn't have to be made available, and we don't require any kind of specific format in how you distribute the data itself. It has to be accessible by the public. So posted to the GIS data list or your own websites is certainly a good way to get the data distributed. We do need a copy of all the data that's been collected. That is for our own auditing purposes. So we do keep a copy of that locally. We do not, excuse me, tripping on my own words here. We do not publish that on your behalf. Unless it is integrated into a greater MSDI layer. So if you are submitting survey control, that survey control data will be integrated into the mapping control data set and also the cadastral. If you're submitting next-gen 911 data, that will likely be submitted into the greater state-wide data sets of addressing and transportation. We ask that you work with your project manager for all data submittals. Depending upon the size, there's going to be different ways you submit it, other than submitting it via the reporting tool. And again, all data must be posted to the Montana GIS data list unless it is a part of a greater project. And with that, I think we're a few minutes over, Matt. Hopefully you have enough time. We'll start the reporting tool demo. So as you're getting set up, let me know.
Yeah, I'm good to take over whenever.
Go for it.
All right.
It's all yours.
So the first thing I want to discuss, just a moment. Can everyone see my screen? Confirm that. Erin, can you see my screen?
Yep, or I can. Sorry.
Okay, anyone for that matter. All right. So these are some instructions about accessing, or we call it it's actually our reporting application. We're calling it a quarterly reporting application, but we've changed it this year so you can submit multiple items with this application reporting tool. And there is a link that's available in this document, and I'll share this link with everyone. A lot of our past grantees are familiar with this process, and there's a couple of different ways to get to this link. First off, you need to have either a Montana State Okta account or an ArcGIS Align account of your own organizations. And we will be discussing with new grantees about the best one to use. I think Sean just recently sent an email in regards to which one of these you may have, and it really depends which account type of, we're hoping to use your organizational ArcGIS Online account, but if not, we can set up a state account and give you access to this reporting tool. And the reason why we do this is that these reports require authentication because A, it's privileged data, and B, we want you to give you the ability to perhaps edit a report if you need to change something. It's a bit of a process, but it's not too terrible. And this document that most of the past grantees do have will be provided to all the new grantees. And the intention is if this is over your head, don't feel bad. I'm going to contact all the new grantees about how to get into the application itself, what's the best method to use, and how to go through this process. So I'm going to condense this. I'm going to move a little fast on it, but I just want to make everyone aware that if you feel uncomfortable, don't worry. I'm going to reach out to you and help you with this. So one of the things you can do, of course, is get in with ArcGIS Online, and just to say, when you do hit this particular login screen, there's a couple of different boxes of like, where do I go here? Well, you use the first box. It's actually called ArcGIS Online. If you're using that as an ArcGIS Online user, you put in your organizational account, and then you move on with the application tool. If we provide you an Okta account, there's actually a separate area in the bottom of this form where you click on that Okta button at the very bottom. It's a blue button. You click on that, and then you put in some of your provided State of Montana Okta account information. I'll go through that individually. And then we also have the ability, and I'll talk about this briefly, about to edit reports. But before I get ahead of myself and talk about editing reports, let's talk about using the reporting tool to actually submit data. So when you do click on that link, it'll bring you to this particular form. And what you can see in this form is that we're calling it the grant reporting and upload tool. So before this was just for uploading, we're doing quarterly reports. At this point, we're saying, okay, you can do more than just that. You can also submit quarterly reports, invoices, final reports, extension requests, and contract amendment requests. Extension requests and contract amendment requests, they're, you're amending your contract regardless, but sometimes we streamline the process with the extension request to say, hey, if you really need to do this, if you're going to do it, you don't need to fill out a quarterly report. You can simply check on this and submit, and then upload your extension request. Same with the amendment request, et cetera. But one thing I want to get into is to say that, like Erin has enumerated in her presentation, that when you are submitting an extension request or contract request, that must be formally submitted, right? These are things that you're hopefully working with your project manager at the MSL on, where these problems are coming up. We'll coach you through that. We'll talk about what you need to do. This is just making it easier for you to upload that information later on. But like Erin had mentioned, you don't necessarily have to do it here. You could also just upload it simply by emailing your project manager at the MSL and get them that information. One of the reasons we're using this tool to help upload this stuff is sometimes, people aren't in the office. They may not be able to get the email you send. There are multiple eyes looking at this information. So I would encourage you to use this as a mechanism to upload this data. But if it's easier for you to email, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. We don't want to be punitive. We want the information, obviously. So when you do start here, you do want to pick the grant that is pertinent to the year that you're submitting for and your organization. As you can see, if you click down the drop down, you get some different options. Now we go all the way back to fiscal year 2022 for some off-cycle grants, to fiscal year 23 to some fiscal year 24 grants. Custer County is a good example. They have both a fiscal year 23 grant and also a fiscal year 24 grant. So they need to be careful about which one they pick. But in that case, let's say I'm going to pretend to be Custer County today. I'm an admin, so I can grab whatever I want here. But one thing you may see that comes up is that now we have a dashboard that's available for you. So once you pick your grant, you get an organizational dashboard that'll pop up. If you click on that, one thing you'll see is this, at least in the case of Custer County, they have the ability to see all the reports that they have sent for their first fiscal year 23 grant, and of course nothing, and whatever they have submitted for their fiscal year 24 grant. And you'll see that this gives a nice condensation of, hey, what reports have you submitted, and also what other data you may have submitted too. So if you were to click, say, on, Custer's a bit more complicated than some of our new grantees. They span multiple years with multiple grants. But if we were to click on the fiscal year 23 section of the grant, you'll see that all the reports that they've submitted for fiscal year 2023 do show up. Now, you can't edit them here, but you can see what was presented. And you can also see from time to time, like maybe, what was also added is, say, an attachment to a particular submission, and these all show up at the bottom. But if you just want to see the attachments, you can use the attachments only button, and it will, if you page through, show you the the grant, the time period you reported for, and also what you attach for that reporting period. Maybe you want to review it for some reason, but it gives you the ability to kind of see that, hey, this is what you've used in a moment of time to edit your grants, or to submit data for your grants. So I want to make everyone aware this is a new thing, and hopefully this helps everyone kind of keep track of what they're doing with their grants. A simpler grant would be Sheridan County. For example, they don't have multiple years of grants with us at this moment. So this is a simple debt reporting dashboard. You'll see that there's nothing reported because they haven't put anything here yet. When you do report, this will automatically populate, but sometimes it takes about an hour because there's some programmatic things happening in the background for it to show up. So you won't see anything, but after about an hour, you'll see a little checkbox and a green box saying, hey, you reported for this particular quarter and this particular grant year. So that is one thing that is new, and you have the ability to do now with our grant reporting tool. One thing you can do is that once you click your grant, you have the ability, of course, to click anything you need to submit for. So I'm just going to pick on invoices very quickly. If I click on invoices, by the way, you could click multiple things at the same time. You could submit a quarterly report and an invoice. They do not need to be submitted together, of course, but you can. But let's just say I'm going to pick an invoice. If I use that, click next, it's really just asking for all the information, just an upload. It needs a minimum of one, at least one file. But as long as you follow all the guidance that Erin just recommended in her part of the presentation, and submit an invoice an invoicing sheet that meets those requirements, you can go ahead and submit it, and we'll review and get back to you. Of course, there's reminders about this has to align with your statement of work and the agreed upon amounts, etc. And that if there are issues, your PM will reach out to talk with you again. So at this point, you could press submit and go forward, and it would submit data if I had uploaded to. Actually, if I try to submit something here, it'll tell you, hey, you need to submit something. I'm not going to do that right now, but there are checks and balances to make sure, hey, you're submitting something. But let's go back again to some of the other items you can submit, which of course is, say, an extension request. Same thing. If you need to, you just know you need an extension request, you do not want to put it in your quarterly report, you can do it right here. Same thing, just drop a file and send it to us. Further, also contract amendments, same thing. You're able to just upload a file and give it to us, and we're able to review it. Final reports, this is new as well. It's the same thing. You can give us a report, and we have some linkage that does take you to our Montana grant information page that we'll talk a bit more about. Let's see if I can get to that page. There we go. If you do click that link, this link goes to a general grant page. We're going to have this link should be able to go to actually a more focused grant information page. So there will be examples for final reports and invoices if you need that help. So let's get into the meat of it though. What are we really doing? We want to do a quarterly report. So when you do click on that, you'll see you have the ability to start a quarterly report. And there's a long synopsis about everything Erin more or less talked about in the first part of her presentation. But it talks about the reporting deadlines, the dates that are there for the individual quarters of your grant, and also about the last grant reporting period. And that's really just for extended or off-cycle grants. If you are extended, you will need to report. Otherwise, you'd be submitting a final report. And of course, there's a link for our grant information page. But once you get into the meat of this grant reporting application, press next. It's really asking for your reporting period. So this is important. Please pick the reporting period that pertains to, if you're in arrears, if you're trying to report quarter one, you can definitely go back and do that. But do pick the quarter report, the reporting period that makes sense for your grant. In this case, I'm going to pick, the reporting period that everyone should be reporting on after this presentation, quarter one. In this case, quarterly reporting author, you can put anyone you want, and the person that's probably on the statement of work for your grant, but a name is required there. Also, your title, your role in the organization is also good to have in there. So. And then this is where we ask if you have any changes. Now, if you don't have any changes, nothing will happen. But if you do have changes, another pop-up box will show up. And we're just going to ask you if you have project role manager or personnel issues. This is your time to say, hey, maybe we lost one of our, someone that was one of our project managers on our side, a secondary or primary for your organization. This is a time to talk about it. And I will always bring this up. Talk about this early with your MSL project manager, where we'd like to know in advance what's happening. We're here to help. We know things happen, as Erin said. So that's something to consider. But in this case, I'm going to say no. We also ask for percent project completion, and you can just use this little slide bar to say about where you are. This isn't rocket science necessarily, but about an approximation of where you are. And in this case, we're also asking for, an overall project status and achievement. Just it might be a good idea to type this out in a Word doc and copy and paste it, whatever is your preference, but to say that this is your time to talk about what's going on with your grant. And we do ask in addition here in a moment where the problems are. So you can talk a bit about the problems, but we're going to ask again about, do you have some issues with the either your project timeline or other statement of work issues. You do have to put something here. Anything with the red star you see is required. And if you were to not put at least something in this box, we'd ask you put more than test. But of course, you need to put something here to continue to move on. If you did not, you'll get screamed at by the application. So in this case, we're also asking, hey, what other project issues are you having? Are you having issues with your goals, objectives, and tasks? And if you aren't, you can just carry on and go no. But if you are, this does kind of expand and ask you for an issue summary. You can put in what's going on, where are the problems, where are the pain points we want to know. Also, it may ask you to, do you anticipate needing an extension? So you can upload an extension right off the bat at the very, very beginning of this grant reporting tool. But what you could do is also say, okay, you're doing a quarterly report. You think you're going to need an extension. If you say yes, it's going to allow you to also upload an extension letter request too. You could if you uploaded it twice, you could put it here as well. It doesn't really matter, but this gives you the opportunity to do that. And then finally, we do ask if there are deviations from your project schedule as defined in your statement of work. And if you say yes, again, you're asked for, hey, what's going on with your project schedule? Please talk about it. We'd like to know when you think, if you need, if the schedule isn't working or there are some issues, we're going to ask for a date. So you can put that in there. That's required. And then also just kind of a project completion date summary. Just go over what is going on with that anticipated time, why you need it. You may have put it in there for the deviations of the project schedule summary, but it's good to enumerate what your anticipated project completion date might be. So in this case, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna say this is our problem page. There aren't any issues, but I'm gonna say no. But you could put them in there. Once you go next, you're given the ability. This is kind of the catch-all. Hey, if there's something that didn't, something else you want to bring up that wasn't a part of maybe a problem, but something you want to talk about, this is a good spot to do it. Also, this gives you the ability just to upload general documents. This could be up, as Erin mentioned, status maps, images, or summaries that maybe are easier to condense and upload in that fashion. We welcome those, so you have the ability to do it. They're not required, but they're there for you to do if you want to use them. The next part we'll go into is the quarterly financial reporting, and this is for the quarter itself. This is not cumulative. This is for the quarter. And what we're asking for are, first off, do you have any issues? And this is a good spot to say if you said yes. Again, you can type about what those problems are with your budget and go through that. Maybe that might lead to a contract amendment, but it's worth talking about. And at this point, we're really going through all the different elements of the budgetary table of things to report. So if you do have fringe benefits or personnel costs to report, if you pressed yes, it's going to ask for those individualized costs, what the share cost for the MGIA, cash or in kind or etc. Once you do put numbers in these, you will see that they are tallied automatically in kind of a hard to read gray box, but it is there. So it goes through those costs and really shows you what they are. And you have the ability to do that for fringe costs too. You can go through the same with travel costs. It's the same bit, except for, of course, we don't put fringe in travel. For travel, you can do that. For equipment, you can do the same as well. I'm gonna pretend like I don't have any of those. Contractual costs, supply costs, same thing. So you have the ability to put all those amounts if you have them to report. And of course, other costs are available to you as well. One thing you'll see is we do give a tally of calculated totals. These totals will come out and you'll see what each one of those major categories equate to, and hopefully the math works out for you when you're able to say, okay, that's what you're expecting, and for the report that you wish to submit. So in that case, once you've added all that information, you can press submit. And you'll see that you'll get a thank you page that says, hey, so if you see this page, you know your report was submitted and it's head to the library. But also along with that, past grantees have seen this, but to say that you're going to get an email to your account from whatever account you use to report this, use the reporting tool for this session, you will get a report that shows a condensation, a summary of what you reported for your submission.
And I can confirm, Matt, that I did just get notification that you submitted that report.
Yeah, so we get notification on our side, and you will get an email notification that says, okay, this is what you submitted in this case. So this is something I made earlier, so it may not align with what I just did a preview on, but to say that you'll get a kind of a document, a PDF that'll tell you, hey, what you submitted on all the information you provided in that particular submission. And hopefully it's something that you can reference on to say, they'll tell you what data, what files you may have uploaded, etc. It will give you at least for, and this is an accumulative budget, by the way, but this is just the budgetary stuff you provided to us in that report, of everything you provided in that budgetary questionnaire part of the report. So this is something meant for you to refer to, and if something doesn't look right, of course, reach back to the library and your PM to talk about any issues you might have. If you don't get a report, well, that's a bad thing too. We want to know that, and also to say that I'm effectively the technical lead on this application process, so I might be the person to best help you. Of course, you can talk to your PM, but if you have issues with this application, reach out to me. I'll see where the issues are and make sure that things are set up appropriately. Little things happen sometimes. The only thing I really want to just emphasize that when you provide either an ArcGIS Online user account or an Okta account, please be consistent. Please keep on using that account. We're asking you, some of our users have multiple ArcGIS Online accounts. We're asking you to pick one and just use it. And the reason for that is that it helps you get back and see old reports that you may want to edit. So that's more or less the really quick version of how this application process works and how the application works online. But again, I'm going to reach out to all the new grantees and coach them through about how to log in and how to make their first reports and how to use the application. So if you're stressed about how to use it, please don't worry, I'll help you out. And that said, I think, Erin, I kind of sped through that, but I think I have a little bit of time left over for questions or anything else.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Especially while he's got it open.
Hey, Erin, this is Shane Fox.
Hey, Shane.
Hey, do we have a couple weeks to report on this first quarter because they're due today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is correct. I think, did I say Halloween? Was it?
Sure.
I thought well, they were due Friday the 13th. So I thought, oh, I'll change it to Halloween because you can remember the spooky dates. But does anyone, I I don't have my email pulled up. Yes, we're not going to amend the contract. So I guess we could call it an unofficial extension for grants this year because we are behind. And of course that creates that domino effect of making everybody else be behind. So, appreciate your patience. And, I think we said Halloween. So we'll follow up and we try to remind everyone through, email when your grant reports are due, but we're giving everyone at least 2 weeks.
Great, thanks.
No problem. And I'm sorry, I don't think I put that I didn't mention that earlier, but yes.
For current grantees, I appreciate folks that have reached out asking if they should submit. Thank you for being patient with us as we've gotten through this training and the application process, but you do have some extra time. So
Yeah, some of you have already submitted though, but so thank you for that. Any questions about the tool itself? If you have not noticed, it's survey 123. Matt can dazzle you with his survey skills if you have questions on how to use survey 123. Unrelated to the grant program, we certainly can help with that as well.
Yeah, I got a question. This is Erin.
Hi, Erin. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I don't know, maybe you kind of went over this, but maybe I glossed it over, but with the invoicing and in-kind work that say I'm doing, is it just do I submit an invoice of a table of like work hours? Or is that coming as a final report? How do you parse that?
When you want to show in-kind reporting, or is that correct?
Well, does it fall under like invoicing in a sense that we're doing in-kind work? It's not really invoicing, but
Yeah,
would it
understood.
be something I tracking?
Yeah, so we would like you to report that. So yeah, there's in your final report, we'd like you to lay all that out, but then Matt, can you pull up the tool, please?
yeah, just a second.
And
Okay.
then we need a demo one. You're gonna have to click on everything, aren't you? So it's on that third page. If you could just quickly get to that. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can.
Here we'll be Great Falls today.
Okay.
All right.
Just choose whatever.
Oops.
This is how fast I'm going to be able to do mine.
Exactly.
Please
sure.
don't do it as quickly as I'm doing it.
This is the micro machine level.
This is awesome.
All right, so here we are.
Okay, so then so this is a great question for each of the grantees category. You can choose MGIA share, applicant cash, other cash, or in kind. And so if you click yes there, then this is where you would put that in kind right there. So if it's personnel costs, you would list that right here. Does that make sense to you, Erin?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Okay.
now that you drill down and kind of
Yeah.
parse
Yeah.
it
So
out.
so if you let's say this year you're going to partner with the county. They're providing in-kind funding for personnel, and then you are as well, and you're also getting funding from MGIA. You would actually have 3 things to enter there. So let's do personnel costs. Let's just put 5,000. And then not cash, that really doesn't make sense there, but in kind, let's put 7,000. So, and that would be a breakdown between your partner and your own in kind. So you would put that. So if the county was providing $2,000 and you were providing $5,000 for in kind costs for your specific grant, that would be the 7,000 there. So that's where that would be lined out. No, it's 7. You're right.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
see.
oh, that's right.
In our summary table, Matt, we have if a partner was going to have be a part of this, if they're going to partner with another county, we didn't have the capability to do, 5 or 6 partners for each grant. So we just asked that they all be tallied together.
That's right.
Yeah. Erin, does that answer your question?
I think so. And I have to look at this statement of work, but the MGIA personnel reporting, let's see.
Yep.
Personnel costs, that's broken down by the total amount that I was awarded, right? And that's
Yes.
hard, that can be just kind of entered in as a quarterly
Yeah.
expense.
It's right here. You're reporting spending to date. We just want to understand where you're at financially in the project. So if you have hired a contractor and I don't know, you've had 4 meetings and you want to I don't know what else you might have done. You've created some maps for your surveyor to go out into the field. Let's say you had a total of 40 hours here. You would put that into your in-kind personnel costs. If you were granted funding, however, and MGIA was paying for part of your salary, that would go into the MGIA share portion.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, I think that's probably not part of what I'm doing right now, but
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Chances are most grantees have identified personnel as in kind. I think we've got like Missoula counties on the phone. They hire an intern. And so they make requests, and so when they outline all their intern work to date, they would put that funding of what they've paid them in that MGI share for personnel.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Are there
And-
any other questions?
One thing I will bring up, Erin, is once you do punch all that out and when you get your report back, and if you look at this and if something looks askew, of course, we can discuss it. We do have the ability to edit. If you have something, rather than submit a new report, you can grab a report that you had submitted and edit it in the grant application program. This is actually in survey 1, 2, 3, but to say that you have that ability, I'm not going to go through that right now. The past grantees know how to do this. And if you're uncomfortable editing, you can of course make a new submission and we can deal with the old one. But to say that we do give the ability to adjust something if you found an oopsie and you need to get it resolved, you can get in there and modify that. But I'll coach any other grantees or anyone else at that time if they want to adjust something about how to do that. We do have instructions for it, but sometimes it's better just to kind of work through it together.
All right. Any other? Just a reminder, I think Matt said it like 5 times, but we will be reaching out to you individually if you don't have an account set up to make sure we can get that up and running, obviously before the end of the month so that you can report on time. And if there are no questions, we'll just go ahead and stop it there. Sean and Matt and I can hang out on the phone for a few more minutes if you do have questions, but we just wanted to thank you all for being our partners in through this MLIA grant. See, I did it, MGIA grant program, and wish you luck, and please don't hesitate to reach out and always refer to your statement of work before asking any questions. Probably you still might have a question, but some of that stuff might be answered in your statement of work. We have no problem trying to jump on a phone call with you, getting on a Zoom call. We have no problem answering those questions, and we want to make sure you guys have clarity moving forward and it doesn't hold up your project. So thanks again for being here. And again, we will stay on the line if you have more questions. I am going to stop the recording and stop the share. And we will be posting this within the week. So thank you all and have an awesome day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks.